What is up? Hey, everybody. How's it
Everybody.
going? All right, I have to say before we get started, people are wondering why it looks like I'm wearing a seatbelt. I've actually got my arm in a sling. Don't worry, nothing accidental happened. I had some shoulder surgery. I'm okay, but I am in a sling. So in the background, we've got Richard from our team who's going to be helping out, dropping links and stuff like that in the chat. So forgive me if I'm not as fast at grabbing random bits of information and sharing them with you, but we're still going to continue the show as normal. But yeah, Matyy, how are you doing? Welcome back to the show.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Yeah, we were just on a few weeks ago. I was chatting with Savannah and Rick Oakes on right sizing and using Compute Optimizer. So good to be back. Equally excited for today's topic as well.
Yeah, you're on double feature in this season, hopping back on. And we've actually, today I booked up someone for next season, and we're now fully booked. Season 8 is fully booked all the way up until the end of the year, because obviously we're reInvent. And before I forget, if anybody's noticed over here, I'm trying to point, Build Live. So I'm teaming up with the Build Live team to do a live cost optimization day on the 28th of September. So we're talking with some Amazon people, we've got some external guests coming on, we've got some partners coming on, and it's a full kind of long stream with Darko about cost optimization. So put that in your diaries. There'll be more information to come, but wanted to just flag it now. Anyways, so let's get into it. So welcome everyone to the Keys to AWS Optimization, the show where we share stories, concepts, and solutions to help you unlock your spend at AWS. My name is Stephanie Gooch, and I'm a Senior Solution Architect at AWS, here to chat to you all about your cost optimization needs and journeys. If you're watching us live, please feel free to put comments, questions in the chat. And if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. But Matyy, we are talking about finding optimizations in the cost and usage report today, right?
Yes, that's right. And it's a topic I'm super jazzed about. So not obviously just for my role, and hi everybody. I'm also a senior SA here at AWS. But for me, I used to lead a data team within an oil and gas company. I also led a data team within a education startup there. So something that's really near and dear to my heart. So excited to be chatting about it.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know that. So there you go. I've learned something new today. If you want to check out, Matthew's been on a few times, like he alluded to at the start. So if you want to check out our YouTube channel, Keys to AWS Optimization, you can go on there and watch all of his past videos. But yeah, let's chat into it, Matyy. So we were talking before about getting started with general optimization. So how is it that you normally start when it comes to looking for a customer when they want to start optimizing it?
Yeah, and this can be true for anybody. Your customer can be your end users, can be your whole organization there. But I would say in our last session that I did on this, we jumped straight into the cost and usage report. And you'll hear me abbreviate that several times today as CUR. So just for folks that are not familiar with that, we'll just be using CUR as the acronym there. But at any rate, you want to take a step back. First and foremost, because once you dive straight into the cost and usage report or CUR, it can be a little bit overwhelming because there's a lot of data in there, right? It's our most detailed way to take a look at your cost, take a look at your usage there. So I would recommend maybe look at cost and usage report, Cost Explorer. Maybe take a look at your QuickSight dashboards or whatever BI tool that you have to see where you actually want to dive in. Because it can be intimidating if you're just trying to figure out, hey, where do I even start? So I'll give the example of maybe you're using, say, cost anomaly detection, trying to figure some stuff out. Hey, I've seen a spike and I have identified maybe the days, maybe the linked account I want to look at. But let's start to take a look at the resource IDs. And that's when you'd want to jump into the cost and usage report, as that's going to provide you the most detail there.
Yeah, I think it's one of those, we've had this, we think we've spoken about on the show before, where we all have like different ways in which we start looking at customer data, like whether it's Cost Explorer or whether it's CUR. And I found myself today literally just like jumping between so many different places that I was like, I use them all. They're all, and like you just said, they're all for different reasons. So definitely make sure your Cost Explorer is enabled, and that is your first point of call to like filter, group, and get like a quick insight. But the CUR is, I think, what we spend the majority of our time on. The resource ID is the big thing.
Yes, and then the hour granularity. And then for Cost Explorer, like you mentioned stuff, everything has its own purpose, but I think it's going to meet like 80 to 90% of what you're wanting to do on your deep dives. And it's really when you need that remaining 10 to 20% is when you'd want to start using the cost and usage report. So resource IDs, hour granularity. Moreover, say you're part of a larger organization and then you only have purview over, say, 10 out of 100 of the accounts there. it might not make sense to look just at Cost Explorer there because you might only see one account there for your organization, right? So cost and usage report gives you a way to do that. Your organization might show you, share with you the full report. They might split it out there. You can set up cost and usage report for your individual linked account. And then even just last year, I just want to have a plug here for AWS Billing Conductor. They announced pro forma groups. And there you can actually have a cost and usage report for that pro forma group. So again, the example, maybe you have 10 accounts there, being able to say, let's just have those 10 accounts in my cost and usage report rather than everything.
Yeah, the member account thing where you can just have it in your own linked account is super helpful if you manage one account. I was actually looking at customers' storage data today, and we saw there were like 3 buckets all with the same name, and then it was like a replication, and clearly somebody in the organization is like, oh, I need this data as well. They've replicated it to multiple places. So you can always do that and kind of share yours. And so here's the link if anybody wants to have a look at just setting up your CUR. Okay, awesome. So when it comes to getting started with a cost and use report, we've said in here before it become quite daunting, but we have a really good resource that people like to use. What do you like to start off with to find information?
Yeah, so I think this is a good plug to bring up on the screen the lab that I have up. And so where I usually like to start is, maybe you're trying to figure out what are the column meanings, the definitions, and there's the dictionary that we have here, and we can share that a little bit later there. But where I usually like to start is the AWS Well Architected Labs. We have this level 300 CUR query library, and it's a curated set of queries that people have put together, and people are updating it all the time. I even just saw one here for Aurora IO Optimize, and that's something that we released, I think, just last month. So folks are already implementing queries in here, updating it, and that's a good way because you can usually use that as your base. And you can do customizations from there. And I'll kind of talk about how I've even done that in our demo today when I pull up Athena on taking some of the queries here to start.
Nice. So also just a plug, if anyone's using CUR and they're like, oh, I have an amazing query, like contribute it. Like Matyy said, it changes all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So here you can be like, well, based off of Cost Explorer, I want to be able to take a look at my compute. Maybe you're wanting to take a look at CloudTrail, CloudWatch. We'll have actual examples of that. Or maybe you just want to see, hey, this session today is overviewing cost optimization. What's actually in here that I can start to leverage, right? And you might be using tools such as Trusted Advisor to find elastic load balancers that are idle. And I think that's a really good place to start. So I'll open this up in a new link here. And then we'll jump straight into some of the queries that I use. Okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to say in the comments, let us know, have you got any favorite queries in the library that you use? I'd love to know. Okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah. Yeah, and hopefully there's, no, that's good. And hopefully there's some overlap there. And if there's other queries that folks are using that I'm not using, love to hear about it as well. Now there will be a banner up here. It is just kind of instructions. So within each of these queries, you want to have some customization based off of what table you're running against within your cost and usage report. So everybody's CUR is going to be named a little bit differently. Moreover, there's going to be date filters there. So if you want a certain date range from like last year to last month, you'll look for this dollar sign here and then actually go and change that within the query itself. Now we do have hot links here where you can actually click on it. It's going to take you straight to that query there. Let's actually take a look really quick. We have compute, database, end user computing, networking and content delivery, and storage optimizations. My favorite one to always talk about is GP2 to GP3, relatively low-hanging fruit item there for your optimization. So let's click on that. It's going to bring you all the way to the bottom of the page there. And it will give you a description of what this is. It will also give you a tip, right? So some organizations, you might have a lot of data. Again, cost and usage report can be very, very detailed, hour granularity, and you want to see how can I actually scope for this. So this will give you a general idea of how many resource IDs you might be taking a look at. So I'll do that again. You can expand that, and then you can expand this one, and it's going to take you to the full query with some notes in here. And like I mentioned, you want to be able to replace things like this dollar sign here. Some of the queries will have one for specific dates here. In this case, we've already pre-filtered that date here, but you can always customize that. And again, how I use this is the base query. You'll copy here on the left-hand corner or right-hand corner, just left click it there and it says copy to clipboard. So Steph, is this kind of similar to how you explore your CUR queries? Do you use this page a lot? Curious to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that's your favorite because I wrote the original one. So I was like, yeah. Throwback to one of my first blogs.
Unplanned, but great to hear that. So thank you, Steph, for the query that I use all the time. So maybe let's jump to Athena here, right? So it's copied to my clipboard. I'm just going to paste that in. right? And then just, I'm not going to run it. I actually have pre-ran it here, but I'll show you the customizations that I do, right? This is how it's going to appear after you paste it in with all the notes in there. Again, depending on what system you're going to use, Control F for Windows here. I'm going to search for that $sign here for that table name. You can just remove it. And this is my CUR demo that I've created today. You can just double click it and it's automatically going to bring it in there. So you don't have to type it there. We also have those Athena type head recommendations. So you can start typing and then it will actually start to populate. So something that I'm a fan of, especially since sometimes you'll have these prefixes on the different column names. So if I'm always trying to remember what is operation, I can start to type in like operation. It'll bring up the column name. So something that's just like specific to me that I really like to do. At any rate, let's flip to the one that I already ran. I'll show you what that looks like here. Okay. It makes sense now that I think about it, stuff that you wrote it, because it also includes pricing for Dublin here, right? So US one. I'm usually used
You
to
can
looking
always
at IAG
tell.
pricing there.
There's whenever I build anything, I think it's because at KPMG we built everything in Ireland, and so all of my code is normally default to Ireland, and then stuff breaks a lot because a lot of data can be like, not all the time, but like is kind of predominantly built for US one. No, US West one. I can't even say it. And I get, and all things are like, oh, why are you trying to do it in Ireland? It doesn't make any sense. So rooting for the UK. Or UK,
Yeah, I
obviously.
was like, man, why is it using this as my default region? But it makes sense now. But yeah, I mean, you'll see it in here. So when we're taking a look at the GP3 pricing, it is hard coded into this query here. We're trying to figure out like what your savings might be. So here you would want to customize that, right? So go to the EBS pricing page, take a look for, say, your particular region that you're interested in, whether that's IAD, CMH, what have you there. Just take a look at what does a GP3 gigabyte month cost you, and then input it here. You can run that, and I'll show you what the results look like. So again, everything, this is dummy data. This is not my actual sandbox data. I've taken things that don't actually have like account IDs in there. So that's why you see some weirdness on the account IDs. But at any rate, you'll have your public pricing, the resource ID. So this is the cool part here, right? You're taking a look at Cost Explorer. You can obviously estimate how much you're going to be saving going from GP2 to GP3, 20% baseline savings just from moving to GP3. But if I want to take a look at the specific resource IDs, maybe I have tags that are specific to that. So folks that are like production, test, development, folks that want to start with a lower environment, maybe they're in a shared account there. That's a good way to customize this and be able to bring that column in and just say like, this is a volume that I care about. This is how much it's incurring me every single month. Let's focus on this one. So rather than taking a look everything at once, you're piecemealing it into like, here are the things that I should focus on, the top 10 volumes.
Yeah, and I'll add a very small thing was, and Matyy, please check me on this. So in Compute Optimizer, it doesn't show necessarily like GP2 is unoptimized to move to GP3, does it? It just says it's fine if it's like the right size. Yeah. So often the reason why, I mean, when this query was written, that didn't exist in Compute Optimizer, I don't think. So, I mean, GP3 was new. So there's a reason why to mention like Matty's last episode on like right sizing and Compute Optimizer, that this query is like a good additional thing to check against your dashboards and your Compute Optimizer information, because it might not take that into consideration. Also, a small shout out to the Compute Optimizer dashboard and the Cloud Intelligence dashboards, because too many dashboards. That does take this into consideration in the cost. So just like a small kind of flag for them. And I've got a comment from Rocking Horse, not query, but I always bring in the pricing unit field, especially on storage queries, so I can understand the usage units. Really good to add in that data. And that is one of the powerful things about the CUR is you do have all this information in one place. Okay, sorry, continue.
No, and I wanted to reiterate. So it's a good comment there. So it makes sure, like, as you're filtering different things such as usage type, as you're customizing, you want to make sure that you're taking a look at the right data, right? That you've not accidentally added something that shouldn't be into the query there. So pricing unit's a good one. If I can take a look at gigabyte month, making sure that I'm not bringing in, say, IOPS or throughput when I'm just only curious, say, about the provisioned storage that I have there.
Awesome. Okay, so that number one query is EBS. What other ones do you like using?
Well, it's still EBS, but like, say you take this query, you bring it to your engineers, and you're like, well, we've actually upgraded all of our volumes, or maybe you've done it in an automated governance fashion. But then the next step is like, how do I even track how much I saved from that, right? Because it can be confusing as you have fluctuating environments. Maybe you have net new workloads coming online, you have net new migrations, and you're trying to figure out, well, like how much did I actually save? Because everything is changing. And that's when you want to use the concept of unit cost. I'm sure, Steph, you have sessions to cover everything, but like unit cost is a really cool one and an interesting one, right? So all I'm doing in this query, and we don't have one in the query library, but I'm just using the same query for that I had for GP2 to GP3, but I'm changing some of the filters here. So in this case, this EBS query is bringing into everything. Here, I'm taking a look at, hey, let's take a look at anything that has the naming convention of GP2 to GP3. Now, folks, if you're not familiar, you have the like here, and then you have this wildcard. So the percentage sign will say like, grab anything with GP2, no matter if there's text before or after it. So the reason that I'm bringing this in is I'm curious about things such as throughput and IOPS in this query. So for the concept of unit cost, I'm curious about the all-in unit cost. And what I mean by that is maybe you have to provision additional IOPS and throughput as part of your move, or maybe you want more performance as part of your volume there. So being able to take that into account. So again, I use the same base query there. I'll scroll up here, and then this is where I'm doing some of the customization. And you see my note here. So all-in costs here, we define the numerator as associated cost to your usage. So again, the provision gigabytes, as well as the throughput and IOPS. On the denominator, we care about the driving unit. In this case, every single gigabyte month that I provision there. And then I create some formula here. Hopefully it's a little bit easy to understand here, but it's basically an if statement. So if usage type equals GP, this one, this represents the actual usage of the gigabyte months and as well as the IOPS and throughput. Now down here, I'm taking a look anything that has just the gigabyte months, and I'm dividing those two by each other, and I get that unit cost. And I'll scroll down here just to kind of close the loop. So you see, again, this is a little bit older data, but my unit costs, maybe I'm doing some migrations as well as taking a look at modernizing, and this is where I end up per gigabyte month on my cost there.
Awesome. And could throw out, that's not in the library, but if you want a copy, then feel free to email us at costoptimization@amazon.com. Or if you have any questions about anything in terms of cost, feel free to email us. But I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I mentioned that this is good to track one savings. One, you can see how this is changing. So like for a particular customer, this is how we tracked, hey, you actually saved 10% by moving to GP3. It's a good metric to track. But then what you can take a look at is for the previous month, how much did I run on gigabyte months? And that might be, say, like 1 million gigabyte months. It doesn't matter the unit there. Mm-hmm. But then you just multiply, say, your most recent unit cost versus where it was when you started. And then you subtract the two of that, and the delta between that is your savings. So like where I was versus where I am now.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right. Thanks for sharing that. That's a nice little amendment you could make to your own queries. Awesome. Okay. So are we going to go through a couple of other queries?
Yeah, let's go to this one because I think you mentioned that you really like the CloudWatch query. So love to hear about how you use it, but I can also talk about how I use it as well.
Yeah. So CloudWatch. Okay. So the CloudWatch query, I know we're saying how to find optimizations in the CUR. This doesn't give you on a platter optimizations like the other ones do, which show you actually this resource might be idle or you could make a change. It just gives you more of an in-depth understanding into where you're spending money in CloudWatch. I bring up CloudWatch a lot, so I won't go into the massive details of it. But what I like to do is if you scroll down, Matyy, my first point of call is figuring out what kind of log, what usage type I am using. So in the results, and I'll pull up the query. Yeah, so if you go down to the results. Sorry. So I can see things like, there we go. So put log events, metric storage, others, all these kind of data processing. So this gives you a bit more of an understanding of where you're spending the money. Put log events is often the highest one, which is just where you're processing, obviously it says that data processing, where you're processing the information from the log queries. And then I also like to go to the left and look at resource ID, so I can figure out which log group is causing that inflow. Oh, is resource ID not in here? Oh, I've amended it. There we go. That's
I might have taken it
called out. But what you can do is you can add
customization.
Customization. Matyy won't do it, otherwise he will probably drop off the session because it's internet. But you can add resource ID to it, and then that's how you pinpoint again which groups are causing that. And this is something really powerful. If you're an engineer and you're looking at this data, you can figure out what is causing a spend in your account. But if you're a FinOps person and you want to figure out who is causing that data and asking that question, which is like, do you need that? Is there something going on with their processing that it's really high? It's out of the normal high. If it's like a non-production environment, could you go in and say kind of, where is this data coming from? Do you need all these logs? And ask those kind of questions. But yeah, Matyy, how do you use it?
Yeah, I use it in the same way. The other way that I like to take a look at it, like you mentioned, trying to take a look at put log events, but I usually customize this to take a look at a ratio. So like what percentage am I spending on put log events in relation to the rest of my CloudWatch spend? So that's just a manner of like condensing this down and like maybe removing the other items in here. But then that gives me an idea of like trends. So maybe this is super, super high in my environment and I'm trying to figure out how can I actually optimize this, or does this look okay in the first place? Moreover, it helps you determine maybe who's the contributors to these put log events. So maybe you have a large organizations with hundreds, thousands of accounts there. So you can see like who has really high ratio of these types of items there. And I forgot to mention like how you can even find this. Again, going back to the query library, you can go here into management and governance, and that's where you're going to find this CloudWatch query.
Perfect. And someone's popped on the chat. I won't read this all the way out, but they have put in the chat how you find the resource ID, because for log group specifically, it is hidden in a kind of more confusing format. So thank you, Rocking Horse Winner has posted this to share to the group, but sometimes it isn't in the library, which is helpful. So going back, I want to ask about the ratio thing. So sorry, say that again. What was the ratio aspect that you looked at?
Yeah, I mean, it's just taking a look at what consumption is put log events having in relation to the rest of your CloudWatch spend. So you can just have a trend.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I get to see, am I actually doing anything with that? Is it a concerning thing for me? Like, because maybe the number can be astonishing, but in relation, it's only like X percentage of my spend there, right?
Yeah, especially if you have like hundreds of EC2s and they're all pushing up logs or like something like that. No, that's an interesting way to kind of rationalize the data, because I think I do that. I see something's high and I'm like, oh, let's go check this out. And then you dive into it and you're like, oh, it's meant to be high. I think I did that. It's saying I've been doing a lot of stuff on storage. And so I had this for a bucket, which was like a really high amount of spend on it. But then you see the amount of GET requests that were going to the bucket and you're like, oh yeah, this bucket is used constantly. So stay in standard, stay in that tier, like it's the best situation. Okay, so we've got about like 8 minutes left. I know there were two more that I think were more prescriptive, right? Like the NAT gateway and the ERB ones.
Yeah, so ELB ones, and then I'll also talk about the CloudTrail one to close us off, and then some review. So you can get it into the cost optimization here. I'll condense us and this query up here, but up here you'll see again IDLE ELB and the description. So this is something that is provided by Trusted Advisor. But you see the caveat here is Trusted Advisor only does it for classic load balancers. So if you're looking for net or app load balancers, this is a good way to take a look at that. Again, I love taking a look at the Trusted Advisor query. It's a good start. And then maybe if I want to expand that into a larger scope there, again, that net and app, I can take a look at that. Moreover, it's taking a look at how much data traffic was received by those load balancers there as a good metric of seeing if it's orphaned or not and can be deleted. So usually how I like to customize this, again, you have your date filter, your table name here, but you see this metric down here. And then it's saying that how many hours did I run that specific load balancer for that particular month? In this case, it's saying about half the month there. You can change it to, if I know July has X amount of days, how many hours is that? So 24 times the number of days in there. So I can see things that were running for the full month. And this pricing unit per resource here just tells me that all I have for the usage type here is going to be the running hours for the load balancer. I'm not, if I didn't have anything in regards to data transfer, it will pull up here. Whether if I did have data transfer, it will actually exclude it from this query with this item here. So cool one to use, usually a pretty quick win, especially if it doesn't have a lot of traffic flowing through.
Nice. I like these. I think the good thing about these queries, and we're moving into it, and the same I think with the NAT one as well, it's using the usage data a lot more than just the cost, and it's using the CUR to be a bit smarter than I think when I used to think about it originally of how to use it. It just kind of adds an extra level of depth to it, so it gives you some more insight. And it is, I just think people forget how powerful it is because we're so used to it now.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it's usually where I go after, again, those deep dives. I'll take a look at a customer's data and see like, hey, this looks a little bit high. Let me take a look at this and find optimization opportunities. And you can take the same approach, right? For your organization, maybe you're somebody that's looking on behalf of your whole org and providing those recommendations.
Nice. Okay, cool. All right. What else have we got?
Yeah, so I'll close us off with what I like to do when I don't have a prescriptive query. So you saw that query library, people have curated stuff. I always love going back to this summary view as part of the cost intelligence dashboard and kudos dashboard. You'll find this underneath the manual deployment here, but someone's created the summary view here of basically it'll mirror what you have in Cost Explorer. And so say you're taking a look at Cost Explorer and I see this XYZ service is spiking in costs, but I'm trying to figure out certain things such as the resource IDs that are driving it. So you can customize this. This is usually where I like to start when I'm doing those deep dives, and then I'll pair it back there. So like maybe I'm taking a look at S3 and I don't necessarily need this database column. I'll just delete it from here. But this is usually my first go-to where I love to start when I'm building out a new query, because all of the logic's already built out for you.
Yeah. The summary view is huge, as Matyy is displaying on his screen. Just as a reminder, this is the backbone of the Cloud Intelligence dashboards. So if you've deployed it, you've got it in your accounts already. And a lot of customers I know will use this just like rather than querying the whole CUR, they'll just kind of start with this because it's often a lot more human readable. Awesome. Okay. And so that was a great run through of all these different methods of using the CUR to be more powerful. Out there, if you're watching YouTube live, however, challenge, go try one of these queries. They're super easy to run on your cost and use report. Like email us or tweet me. Let us know if you use them, how you found them, if you found any savings, and even better, if you enacted those savings and you can show off saying, look how much money I saved using the query that Matyy and Steph showed me. So drop us an email at costoptimization@amazon.com or tweet me at AWS Steph if you want to let us know. Okay, so Matyy, we've got like 3 more minutes left. I know you wanted to mention the split cost thing. I don't know. I've summed it up, but yeah. Do you want to? That's not a good way of describing it. Do you want to tell everyone about that quickly?
Yeah, so AWS launched split cost allocation data for ECS and AWS Batch back in April. So pretty cool item there. You do have to opt into it, but allows you to be able to see, again, if you're using ECS, how much of that should I allocate to a specific tenant in my specific container there, right? So gives you a good way to be able to do that. It's something that folks have asked for a lot is like, hey, I understand that how much this particular item is costing me, but how do I actually split that out between who's consuming, say, CPU and memory? And this gives you a good way to do that using ECS as batch and as well as batch to be able to split that out. So I would just do a plug for that. If you've not checked it out, a cool thing to check out. Maybe launch a new cost and usage report and then opt into taking a look at split cost allocation, especially if you're a heavy ECS customer.
Yeah, the having that extra, like I said, having that extra data is really handy. If you are going to make duplicate CURs, make sure you check if you need all of them, because I do, because it adds. I funny, I would be interested to know, as like I don't have access to this data, but if there'd be a way to track how many cost and use reports have been made and how many are like triple duplicates, because I swear when I was a customer, I had like someone had made one for their reason, then they realized they made it in CSV, and then you realize you've made it without resource ID, so rather than delete them, you make a new one over and over again.
Yeah, have good naming conventions, right? Because
yes.
then you're like, I don't know which one to delete because this one's final, this one's final. Or,
oh yeah, and then it's just like, or like important or like cost, and you're just like, I don't know who owns this, and do you know what? No one will tag it. I'll tell you that. Anyway, all right. On that fun note, go check your cost and use report buckets. That's what I'll tell you everyone to do. Go check if you have a triple. On that, thank you so much for watching. Next week we are talking about how to create a business case, developing a business case for moving to the cloud. So a little bit more thinking about migration. So see you then. Thank you so much, Matyy, for joining us, and we will see you